Hey guys, this is Cloud and DevOps that days, and I'm happy to welcome you, the new audience on this session. And I'm sure you did a great choice to join this session today. And for those who've been watching the previous session, welcome back. And we continue to talk here about the CICD. And the main rule on our session, be active, ask the questions in the chat and vote for the best question in your opinion. And be sure that you will be able to get the interesting prize at the end of the session. And without any additional words, let me pass the microphone to today's speaker, Sergey Matos. And this is the additional honor to me to introduce him because he is my countryman. And his today's speech is CICD at the service, how to make and what technologies products will suit best. Hey, Sergey, how are you?
Hello, yeah, I'm doing well and ready to start sharing my experience. So, hi everyone. Let me share my screen. Okay, so please confirm once you see my screen. Okay, so basically CI/CD as a service, and as Ola said, how to build it and what tech tools will suit the best. So basically a few words about myself before we start. I'm lead system engineer at EPAM Systems. I'm DevOps, infrastructure as code, basically evangelist, and a bit of Python developer. Also, I'm certified GCP cloud architect as well as AWS. So apart of working, I have some hobbies, which is triathlon sport activities, which is swim, cycling, running, and basically one of cross-continental swimmer this year in Bosphorus in Turkey. So also really enjoying hiking and travel, but of course due to COVID, I'm a bit blocked. So about problem, being in software development for dozens of years, I worked for a few big projects and faced the following problem that within single organization, there are plenty of duplicates, plenty of repeated actions, similar applications are doing the same stuff, and same thing in CI/CD. So imagine you have big organization, but each of developers teams try to make their own CI/CD platform. They see this somehow differently. So that is one problem, that each team has their own specific CI/CD setup. And another problem that we do have different infrastructure. Someone using AWS, someone Azure Cloud, someone Google Cloud, and maybe someone also using premises. So I had an experience on one of my past project where we had combination of all of four, and it was really challenging to make this to create CI/CD service for all of them. And in terms of yeah, we have different teams and different mindsets. So all this make the problem is more significantly because it's kind of tumbleweed, which on which people talking, but no one actually solved this problem. And this tumbleweed basically creates the problem as money, because the more infrastructure setups we have, the more money we spend. And that is one point of problem. But another problem is that how we look on this problem from scalability and reliability point of view. Yeah. So we have a problem. We have idea to make CI/CD as a service which will be used across by anyone in the organization. So how to do this? So basically, first of all, you need to unify You need to unify all the tools. You need to start looking closer to the CI tools. And that's basically what we will do. You probably know that there are on the market, there are different various of CI tools present. But how to start the selection? Someone will use whatever he knew or used on the previous project, and someone probably will ask for the manager advice, and maybe there is some board of directors who will also think on it, and maybe some system architecture meetings. Someone will go to colleague, but is it right actually? So I think it's not, because we should see from the exactly from different criteria. So we should make kind of a few criteria which we can see it on our organization. And of course, each organization will be different, but I suggest that we will make some basic criteria. So one of criteria would be open source, because on open source, you should you have ability to basically to with open source to proceed without any kind of vendor lock or without paying for the service. You just pay for infrastructure. The second thing is pipeline as a code. So why it's important? Because within pipeline as a code, you can reduce the human factor and human mistakes on the setups, and basically it's of course trend, and many of CI tools nowadays is using it. The cross-platform support, of course, it's important, because any of developers, they develop on different runtimes, they develop on different frameworks, and they need a different support from the starting from the Linux and then Darwin and Windows, of course. Self-service, basically what I'm trying to say, that if you are DevOps and you're trying to build CI/CD as a service, you probably want to spend more time on the making this service reliable and scalable and efficient, instead of going and create those pipelines manually all the time, because that's basically what will make you happy first. Infrastructure agnostic, that's basically whatever we described in the problem. We should have our CI/CD service kind of universal. Whatever we will run, either we will run on premise, or either we'll go to VMware, for instance, or for any of clouds, or even if we decide to proceed with maybe not popular clouds. It's also important, right? Because we also nowadays calculating the cost spent on infrastructure. And cloud native. So cloud native, in my mind, that since more and more applications are moving to cloud, I think that continuous integration should be decided on that which was designed for cloud, which was not kind of maybe created there with extra pipelines on integrating, but it should be cloud native really, because it will simplify a lot your work. So about taking in consideration all these criteria, for my experience, when we set up alpha version of CI/CD service, it was kind of maybe first experience, but we decided to proceed with Terraform as kind of infrastructure agnostic tool, where we will be able to set up our infrastructure easily on any cloud. And if client will say us that there is an offer, there is really good offer to move to another cloud, we will be able to do this easily. And basically taking in consideration that we set up, we proceeded with Jenkins on Kubernetes. So all the setup was looked like we had our infrastructure code set up in repository, and it was a separate repository. So using that, we spin up on, especially in this case, we used AWS. So we spin up EC2 instance where we run a rancher. With help of rancher, we started Jenkins master on EKS, and the Jenkins master already had a pre-set up configurations with a Kubernetes plugin where it was able to spin up as slaves as many as it was required. Yeah. With help of Canonical solutions, we successfully resolved Docker and Docker problem and run our workloads and run our builds. So we stored containers, whatever we produced in AWS ECR, but of course it can be used even Artifactory or whatever your private repository you decide. So if you're talking about continuous deployment, we basically proceeded with continuous delivery. If you want to deploy your code on the stage environment first, we used, for instance, deployment manifests and deploy it also in Kubernetes. But let's look on the criteria. On the first criteria, did we met the first criteria, open source? In fact, yes, we met, and the second one, cross-platform support. Basically, yes. With Jenkins, we were able to run even Windows containers, but there was some problem, and probably many of you already know that Windows containers are heavy and they are not so reliable as Linux ones. So basically, infrastructure agnostic, yes, and that was also possible because we use Terraform. Probably someone will argue that, guys, you had to create different resources and different setups. Yeah, it was overhead, but within 1 week and plus maybe some testing, you can switch your infrastructure to any of our cloud. Pipeline as code, yes and no, because within Jenkins, we were able to use Groovy, but if you're asking that, is it DevOps friendly? I don't think so. I always call it the Groovy more Java friendly and for maybe Java developers friendly, but I don't think that having in mind modern trends, that is DevOps friendly approach, and there is something better, I would say. So self-service, actually, it was hard. It was hard because even if we use GitOps approach where developers were able to upload their code, with maintenance and upgrade of Jenkins and managing all the plugins people want, or maybe adjusting, it was kind of, you had to recreate the Docker container and upload it, but still it's this plugins nightmare and all this refresh point of view and all this upgrade. Time to time, it made me sad sometimes. Cloud native. So I think it's no, because Jenkins was never designed for cloud native support. I think that it was made adopted for cloud native than created. So that brings us to another step of looking maybe some alternative approach. And with alternative approach, we looked on the Concourse CI and just replaced the Jenkins with it for beta. You probably think, oh, guys, why you decided Concourse? Like, first of all, it was maybe few weeks of POC, of trying different technologies, of trying different of comparison, etc., and maybe learning some experience. But it was comparing of POCs basically and results. Why, in few words, why Concourse? Because Concourse had a great pipeline. It's first-line citizen. It's basically do all the steps that needs to be taken from application point of view. It's more kind of cloud native, and it's basically, I find, more trendy. So how the setup was looking like? I would say that in first installations, it was, as you see, we simplified it a bit. We actually also removed the run chair, and it was pretty nice setup. We had a Terraform where we spin up a EKS, and in EKS we spin up Concourse cluster, and Concourse itself, it can manage installation in different ways, and we will talk about it later. But yeah, it was kind of improvement. But let's take a look on the criteria. So the first criteria which we hadn't met on the with the Jenkins pipeline as a code, and I think yes, we met it, because having pipeline is YAML, it's more intuitive for personally for DevOps persons, because if you're working tightly with Ansible, you know what I'm talking about. And pipeline, as I said, is a first-line citizen in the Concourse, and it's really nice. The second one is self-service, and with Concourse, the self-service can be easy, and it's mainly because even if we proceed with a GitOps approach and can give people maybe different accesses, but managing Concourse is much more easier compared to Jenkins, especially if you're working with it in EKS or any other Kubernetes installation. And of course, with self-service, if you're talking about self-service or Concourse, you do not spend time on the plugins, because Concourse doesn't have any plugins. It actually does have, but you just define them in the while pipeline setup rather than installing them. So they are kind of pre-created by the community, and there are other contributors who also create those plugins. And basically, cloud native, yes, it was created with think of cloud in mind, even if this was designed by VMware folks, and mainly nowadays they contribute more in the designing and making the Concourse better, but still, it's open source. So let's take a look on Concourse architecture briefly. Probably many of you already worked with it, and there will be nothing new, but briefly, the Concourse consists of web node of the workers, basically Linux workers, Darwin workers, Windows workers. All logs, the statuses of the pipelines, the statuses of the jobs are stored to the database, and it's PostgreSQL. So of course you can use RDS and PostgreSQL engine and set up it, so no issues at all. And very nice feature which I find in Concourse, that you have CLI, and for us as DevOps persons or system engineers, it's much more convenient when you, for instance, can create pipeline within your local IDE or just in command line, upload pipeline, trigger it, even watch it. So it's much more convenient. Golang. Yeah, it was created on Golang. So like it just a fact, like on the right screen, it's basically all the in details architecture, but it's not point talking about Concourse just as it. So you can learn yourself afterwards. It's nice, basically architecture. Let's think about maybe integration, you may ask. Yeah, it can integrate with other external systems, like maybe for Vault, CredHub. You can integrate user management, also DApp, open authentication, etc. So there are plenty of things you can do with Concourse. Primitives. Few words about Concourse primitives, because the pipelines in the terms of Concourse is slightly maybe different from whatever we used to know in Jenkins. Of course, the pipeline is same, that you are doing something, then putting the output given to input of something else, but few words about it. So there are kind of approach task. So it's basically it's smallest configurable unit in Concourse, I would say. Basically, you may think about some function which takes something on input and given some output. It can success or fail, and basically, what else to say on this? Yeah, so if you think about example malware install, we need to have some code on the input, and output will be our targets. So that's just high overview. Resources, it's basically something that detecting, fetching, creation. It's basically external version things. So for instance, if we need to perform git checkout, we first declare a resource. We define a resource that we have. We will work with git resource and will point to some exact repository, right? Or for instance, S3 or Docker image, and we define that we are working with the Docker image. The name will be kind of one, and it will refer to some our like common name of the Docker container, Docker image. Basically, Artifactory, I did a mistake there, and etc. and so on. So there are plenty of resources, and it can be there, like anything you can say. Maybe Helm also a resource. So the jobs is actually kind of combination of the. It has kind of nowadays it has a plan where you can put one or more tasks. So if you put the resources and tasks together to do something, you will get a kind of a job. And of course, if you create a few jobs, you will get a pipeline. Kind of that. And hold on. So basically, yeah, I missed to add pipeline, but pipeline is basically it's glue of all this code of blocks of the jobs, and so initially when we set up a pipeline, we just declare resources we are going to use in the jobs and just the job sections. And the job sections itself, it consists of plan and tasks, and there are kind of many tasks can be in jobs and many jobs can be. So that is how. Installation method, if you're talking about Concourse, so the simplest and easiest way is to proceed with the local installation. Like any DevOps can do Docker Compose, where there will be Concourse DB predefined, and it will be Docker container, of course, used, and the Concourse image. And apart of that, you have to use maybe you'd like to use maybe some extra, maybe Vault or some credential security management system, yeah. But you can download basically from Concourse CI tutorial, Docker Compose, just run Docker. You should have, of course, Docker, but run Docker Compose up in daemon mode, and voila, you have a Concourse locally available on port 8080. That is the simplest way to deploy it, and you can use for your installation locally. And that is basically few words. I just show you and how this works, and let me open that. So I prepared some kind of pipeline for you. So if you see it, like, it's really simple pipeline. You do not see this, but nice feature of the Concourse, they also created the plugin for Atom, and you can basically, if you create some pipeline, it's automatically dynamically show you how this pipeline will look like. So it's really infrastructure as code, and you don't need to upload your code to CI system in order to see the structure. So it's visible, it's nice. So what we will do, we just we will use one resource, which will be just a time one with defined interval 30 seconds. And we just use kind of one plan that will be run every 30 seconds and run simple task where in fact there will be just echo and hello Z community. That's it. And all of this will be done in the container. And the second one will be, we define the not triggered. And not triggered is because there is possibility to set up trigger action. So if you define resource and the resource actually, if you get in resource and we, so what does it mean trigger? So if some actions happen, if for instance git checkout happen, if someone pushed the code and you are created resource, defined resource git to some specific repository, and you are watching for the master branch to be updated, if there is merge request, this resource can trigger your job action. Otherwise, you can set up the false, which will be mentioned in your pipeline as dotted line, but the solid means that there is a trigger action. So this task will never run this match because we did not set up a trigger one. And this third task, we actually also set up the dependency for from the first job as in second example, and it will just echo second time. Of course, there are different items we can use of, but on the local installation, when you do not have Vault, when you do not have maybe other things set up, it's like for I will show you the basic example. So let me go to my command line. So what I'm trying now, I'm just see the I already pressed it up. Let me see. Let me show you. I already started Docker Compose with Docker Web, Docker Worker, and Docker DB containers. And that brings us to Fly CLI. Also, I install it from the setup. So let me show you workers. We see that there is one Linux worker, actually is container on my machine. And basically, let me to upload pipeline, I just need to use set pipeline command where the -p will specify the name of this pipeline, and -c means config, where I will direct this to the example I show it to you, manual trigger YAML. Press enter. So before uploading the pipeline, it's actually compared to existing setup. If there is already the setup exists, it will make a div and will show you, so that it's also nice feature that you will take a look before approve, apply or no, like we used to do in Terraform, right? So we applied, and first thing first, if I open my Concourse, yeah, so the job is here and it's in blue mode, means it's paused, as you see, means that it will not run automatically. So there is possibility to just click a button and unpause, but also you can do this from command line, and usually when I'm uploading, I usually do that. Okay, so we unpause our pipeline and you see the status changed. So like I can trigger it, but it will trigger automatically every 30 seconds. So let's wait and see how this will run. And yeah, also I did set up some kind of other possibilities. So if, for instance, you just want to build Docker image and take, I basically use this pipeline from the Concourse official example. So you can go to ci.concourse.ci.org. You may see the plenty of example there, and those guys can show you like really solid examples. Let me show you solid one. Actually, for their development, they're using their own CI, and it's logically, as I said, like you can play with this CI Concourse. Either you have a Mac or Windows or Linux. The Fly version of CLI is available, so it's really nice. But you may see how it looks like. So this is all resources. This is the jobs you may see, and yeah, and all the statuses. So also what I like about this Concourse is that you don't need to think of dashboard. If you have project manager, product owner who will ask the status, he don't need to see details. He will just go to the page and see the status, and he knows that, okay, containerd integration is broken, so something is wrong. So guys, proper developers should take a look on this. So let me take a look on our example. So it's run already. No magic happened. So as we expected, every 30 seconds, so the clock is ticked out every 30 seconds, and it triggered our first job. And we may see, yes, hello Z community, our message appeared. So if you look on not triggered, it was not triggered and it's grayed out, which is expected. And this job actually caused for trigger second action. Oh, and you may see that when it's running, it's actually a nice design, I think. It's with Amber visualization, it showed that it's running. So that's all about Dell. Let's go back to our presentation. Basically, you can set up pipeline as complex as you want, and yeah, it's in YAML format. So, like on this example, you can use build and test it and deploy if it's completed. So it's also taken from their official Fly release when they prepare Fly CLI and how they build it, then test it. If the test pass, they send an email. If no, they send an email also, and create some kind of gzip file of their version with semantic in semantic format, and then deploy it. Yeah. basically, there are other installation methods available, and for enterprise use, you of course will proceed with maybe cloud public setup. So there is a Cloud Foundry edition of this where they use also Kubernetes, and they also use kind of Bosch CLI, which is specific thing, I would say. But under hood, they also allow you kind of install extra services which you might use. There is also one thing, one item from Control Tower by Engineer Beta. You may take a look and play with it. Yeah, I find this simplified version because you just need to specify access key and secret, and voila, on AWS or GCP. Actually, they support only two clouds as far as I remember, GCP and AWS. So you can run without one single single backup, and that's it. But for enterprise, for looking our production video solution, of course, we could not use that. And as I said, we used Kubernetes, but we deployed Concourse with a Helm chart, which is also publicly available, and you can use it. So then, if you're talking about proceeding from beta to production ready, there was a need to split infrastructure code from application. So imagine that in infrastructure you spin up AWS related stuff, so EKS. Then for cost optimization, you also set up EC2 spots, ingress controller, RDS, load balancers, and in applications side, you may think of having Concourse, Artifactory, maybe other services you need, kind of security management, Vault, or Red Hub. We also use MKDocs for documentation. So how this production solution really was looked like? So as I said, application infrastructure, and the infrastructure part was deployed. The spot instances, it's really nice thing. It's reduce your infrastructure budget from 40 up to 90%, and it's really easily to be configured with EKS. And for those who didn't use it, I strongly recommend using spot instances, especially for CI/CD. And that is our application part. Concourse, the main cluster of CI, and then HashiCorp Vault, where you can store your secret management and play with it and allow users to do this. The Twistlock is basically for verifying the Docker containers, and MKDocs for pretty nice documentation, which you also can upload to your application code and share with the people. Istio for service mesh and integration. So Azure Active Directory is for user authorization, AWS ECR for container registry repository. So taking this into as whole pictures, you may see that basically such solution, if you're not talking about EKS, such solution can be deployed in any of clouds. But my point is that if there is a need to deploy, if your organization is using different clouds and you want to deploy using just simple installation of EKS and Concourse, you will be able to do this to deploy. You just use Helm resource, and you are open to deploy, for instance, to other cloud if you're using maybe Kubernetes as orchestrator in Google or Azure or even on-prem. All right, so finally, let's summarize. So what is important? Important is the criteria. And if you're thinking on making the service, you should finally select those criteria for yourself and think about your organization in specific, and just do not restrict yourself. So about criteria shortly. So open source, yeah. Remember that we like to pay just for infrastructure, not for the CI tool itself and licenses. Pipeline as a code, yeah, it's must. So what I like about Concourse also, just a few advertisements, that user cannot go to UI and manually edit it. He needs to, like in our case, he needs to push the code to repository, and if it's approved and merged, then the refresh of CI is happening, of pipeline on CI is happening. Yeah, so there is no possibility, and it reminds me the story when I was working with plenty of Groovy pipelines, and someone edited, and of course there was a ability to see and find out who did it by looking logs, but I find that GitOps approach should be applied. Cross-platform, that's important because you would like, you will definitely run your applications if you're working for global organization on many platforms. The self-service, focus on making infrastructure, yeah, and not spending your time on writing pipelines. Plugins, I would say that there should be no plugins at all, ideally, yeah, not like we have in Jenkins with this Jenkins snowflake of plugins. It's catastrophe, I would say. Easy maintenance, easy installation, easy upgrade. Think on having Kubernetes basically as your orchestrator, because it will simplify your installation a bit significantly. Infrastructure agnostic, just nothing to add here. And cloud native, a well-architected cloud native system, in my opinion, it should be large, self-healed, cost-efficient, and easily updated and maintained through continuous integration. So, and continuous delivery. So whatever is designed for as cloud native solution should be prioritized first, in my opinion. And the main and important thing, which I forget to say, that nowadays containerization is, of course, if you're still on monoliths, that's sad. You should look into containerization first, of course. Thank you. That brings us to the final, and I'd like to hear your questions if someone has it.
Right. Thank you for your speech. It was very interesting and productive, in my opinion. And of course, we have the questions from the audience. And okay, this is the time for cats or for questions. And we will start from the one which get the most number of votes, from Alexander Ponomarev. And the question is, what you can say about drone CI, how one of the CICD as a code tools?
So, as I said in my presentation, that there are plenty of solutions, and specifically with drone CI didn't work, and that's not the point to compare. But if you're doing your POC and you are looking to get this for enterprise, you should consider that you have to allow the users login, and there should be proper user management system integration. You should consider all the criteria which we discussed. Yes, I just don't want to repeat it. And yeah, and just also additionally take a look on what community drive it, how many contributors, and maybe see the roadmaps on how this CI solution will develop in future, because it's also important, because taking into account nowadays the all major CIs is trying to make support of many containers, container runtimes, not only Docker, right? So containerd, then others as well. So you should take your business model take the criteria we discussed and do POC first. Do POC, do few simple pipelines. See how it works. If everyone happy, think on scalability, think on adding extra need, whatever is required from your organization, and of course, proceed with it.
Thank you for your answer. And the next question is from our frequent visitor, Matthias Kovac. Have you compared Concourse CI/CD with GitLab CI/CD? If so, why did you choose Concourse? What advantages it has against GitLab CI?
Yeah, so really GitLab CI is, I would say that it's one of the important player on the market, and GitLab CI is really very powerful. There was a comparison made, but in short, I would say that it's not fair to compare. Of course, you will find some pluses and minuses, and like even you compare now GitHub Actions, it's really nice. If you like, it's a separate topic. There are plenty of topics on medium.com. You may read it about comparison, yeah. But again, like specifically with GitLab CI, I do not remember in details, and but this whole comparison just about POCs, you like, I'm really fan of the same approach GitLab CI is used. They use the YAML pipelines. It's nice, but in my understanding that there is no good or bad CIs, yeah, and it all depends how will you install it and how will you adopt it for your organization.
All right, makes sense. And Vladislav Lebedev would like to know, is it worth starting to learn new CI/CD tools that are not very popular right now? Or is it better to delve into the mainstream and use universal tools?
Basically, my recommendation would be that if you're proceeding with CI, first, personally for myself, as also I was a contributor for DCS some time back, suggestion would be take a look on who and how many people actually develop the CI platform, because the people matters as in organization as well as in community. See who drives it. All of tools has roadmaps visible usually, if you're talking about open source, but do not be shy to try even some exotics if it has kind of enough community support, right? And if it's, yeah.
Okay, yeah, at least to expand your wide view of the technology.
Exactly.
Okay,
it will help you to extend your view on CI platforms.
Okay, that makes sense as well. And we still have the 5 minutes for a few more questions, so let's try to be brief. The Alexander asking you how it works for the end users. Is there any front end? What developers see where they have access and how they can control their code on all steps? And the second question, what about testing in the schema?
So basically, if you're talking about user experience, so for the user, as I said, since for organization like we had, there is already a service used for authentication, and that basically was used, Azure AD. So but as we used basically existing web UI of Concourse. However, I would say that in Concourse, there is a possibility to make division and break onto teams. So within a team, if you declare one team can have admin access, write or view only. So like you can think that when you onboard in a new team, you need to basically you need to define each specific user from Active Directory, what permissions within team it should have. But if you look further, so for this specific case, our team created an extra tool for onboarding. So extra tool for onboarding was used. It's written on Golang, and under hood it actually Terraform plans. Terraform magic happens also. But the thing is that if you think about more widely, that we have some pipelines which we want restrict not only the people who write, but maybe some sensitive pipeline that there is a possibility to deploy something on production, right? And we want to avoid it. So it's either you making some more teams, or there is also possibility to make restriction via on security policies. And I'm not sure, like, it all depends from the cases, but yeah, it needs to be looked at more deeply. But my recommendation, if it's possible, use GitOps approach. Like if you thinking of deploying something, if you have continuous deployment, or you're thinking that some manager should give approval in order to deploy something on GitHub or GitLab, it's more convenient to get this approved there and get the triggered only to some specific branch, and the branch is to be used in resource so that it will trigger automatically. But still, Concourse also support that you can go to pipeline directly. It can wait for someone to log in and press the job. For instance, some specific users or some board of decision makers, yeah, who want to approve deployment on production, yeah. So it's also possible to wait, send email notification with a link. They will go to a link and press a button. So that's somehow what was another question?
It looks like this one is much more complicated than to answer in just in a few minutes after the session. So I would suggest to move this question offline and continue the discussion under the portal. And let's answer the last but not the least the question from Valerio. What is the experience with the shared responsibilities model? Do you centralize your pipeline? How you ever consider Jenkins template engine?
Sure. Basically, it's partially answer like about Concourse. Partially, I just shared information on a shared responsibility. Like, I probably take this offline and think of it, yeah, about this shared responsibility, because it, again, I'm not sure I understood it correctly. And about Jenkins shared library, the second part was.
What is your experience with shared responsibilities model? Do you centralize your pipeline? How you ever consider Jenkins template engine?
Yeah, basically Jenkins template engine, I didn't work with it as far as I remember. Jenkins template engine is something new to me. So Valerio, thank you. I will take a look on this. Because
this is the good option for you to
yeah,
write
yeah,
your
that is good option
yeah.
for me, because the time I work with the Jenkins is a bit in the past. So I will take a look on this as well.
All right. So maybe you can nominate the best question from this session.
So I like the question of the about user integration of the previous one.
How it works for end users. Is there any?
Exactly.
This one. All right.
It's mainly important for business point of view, yeah, and we all doing our jobs on technical side for business first, with the business in mind. So it's important, and service should be comfortable for users, of course.
All right. So Alexander, we are happy to say that your question was the best one, and our organization team will contact you how to get the prize. And thank you, Sergey, for this interesting speech today. Thank you, dear audience, for being here, for posting your questions and being so active and so amazing. And see you on the next session. Have a good day. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you, colleagues. See you.